The World Cup looks like a football tournament, but underneath the noise, the flags, and the stadium lights, it is also one of the clearest examples of how modern money systems work. For 1 month, a country becomes the center of global attention. Millions of people travel or watch. Brands compete for visibility, governments promise economic benefits, and ordinary citizens are told that hosting the tournament is not just about sport, but about growth, pride, jobs, tourism, and national transformation. The strange part is that when the numbers are studied calmly, the story becomes much more complicated. The World Cup can generate enormous revenue, but the question is not simply how much money is created. The real question is where that money goes, who carries the risk, and why the promise of national profit often feels more powerful than the financial reality. This is the core concept behind the World Cup economy. Mega events do not behave like normal businesses. A normal business spends money, earns revenue, and keeps whatever remains after costs. A host country, however, often spends huge public sums before the event begins, building stadiums, transport links, security systems, fan zones, hotels, and infrastructure designed around a short window of global demand. The tournament may create activity, but activity is not the same as profit. Psychologically, this is where the trap begins. Countries, cities, and voters often respond to the World Cup through what economists call symbolic value. The tournament feels like a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and because it is wrapped in national identity, people are more willing to accept costs that would be questioned in ordinary circumstances. A stadium does not look like a spreadsheet. It looks like pride, status, and international recognition. The math is much colder. Hosting requires large upfront investment, while many of the biggest direct revenues, including broadcasting rights and major sponsorship income, are controlled by FIFA rather than the host government. Local businesses may benefit from tourism and spending, but those gains are uneven. Hotels, airlines, restaurants, construction firms, advertisers, and certain property owners may do well, while taxpayers may carry long-term costs for stadium maintenance, debt repayment, and public infrastructure that may not be heavily used after the tournament ends. This is why the World Cup economy creates such a powerful illusion. Money is visibly moving everywhere, but visibility can be mistaken for wealth creation. A visitor buying food, a fan booking a hotel, or a company paying for advertising all create economic activity. But if the public cost of preparation is larger than the lasting benefit, the country may experience a spectacle of spending rather than a durable economic upgrade. The deeper money mechanic is the difference between private upside and public downside. Private organizations can earn from media rights, sponsorships, merchandise, hospitality, and global attention, while public institutions often absorb security costs, transport costs, construction overruns, and political pressure to deliver on time. This does not mean hosting is always irrational. It means the profit story is often distributed unevenly. There is also a behavioral layer for consumers. During a World Cup, people spend differently because the event feels temporary. Scarcity changes judgment. A ticket feels more valuable because it may never happen again. Travel feels easier to justify. Merchandise feels connected to identity. Even people watching from home may spend more on food, drinks, streaming access, betting, or social events, not because the items changed, but because the emotional context changed. That is why the World Cup is such a useful financial psychology case study. It shows how money decisions change when they are attached to belonging. At the personal level, people overspend for experiences that feel historic. At the national level, governments may overspend for prestige that feels priceless. In both cases, emotion does not remove the math. It only makes the math easier to ignore. The calm way to understand the World Cup economy is not to ask whether it is good or bad. It is to ask who pays first, who gets paid directly, who benefits indirectly, and what remains after the final match is over. The tournament can create unforgettable cultural moments, but culture and cash flow are not the same thing. The lesson is not that people or countries should avoid moments of shared excitement. It is that every powerful story has a financial architecture underneath it, and the more emotional the story feels, the more important it becomes to follow the incentives carefully. The World Cup shows how pride can move money, how attention can redirect spending, and how a short cultural moment can leave behind costs, assets, memories, and obligations that last long after the crowd has gone home. In the end, the World Cup reveals a larger truth about modern economics. The biggest financial systems are rarely built only on numbers. They are built on stories that make numbers feel acceptable. National pride, global attention, scarcity, identity, and hope all become part of the transaction. The money is real, but so is the psychology behind it.